welcome to Stuff Mart, where we have everything you could ever possibly want and nothing you could ever possibly need. How can I help you today, madam?
Well, about time you showed up. I am new in town, and, well, as you can see, I need stuff. Not want, need. And, well, I really hope you can help me with this, because I need this stuff. Show me your ways.
Well, I will gladly give you a perfect basket for your stuff, and they wouldn't call us Stuff Mart if we didn't have everything you could possibly want. So let's see, what can we do for you here? Well, we got ourselves a nice indoor grilling machine. Stick that in there for you. We have trucks. Can't go wrong with some of those. Stick that. Hey, we got a glow-in-the-dark baby toy. How about one of those? Stick that in there. Not really sure what these are, but hey, you can probably use them anyway.
No, I can use them. Okay.
Let's see, what else can I pawn off on you?
Well, you know what?
Yeah.
My neighbor, Mrs. Jones, she has these grandchildren, and she just got these fabulous things for them, and I don't know what they're called, but they're like these touchscreen thingamabobbies, whatchamacallit, maybe, I don't know, screwdriver?
Well, I'm sure we've got a screwdriver somewhere up here.
No, wait, it's an electronic, though. It's something that they do, that they play games on, or
Okay.
they talk and they use their thumbs, they go with.
Do you know maybe what they look like or what they're called? Because there's a lot of things out there like that,
No.
No?
But I need it. I need it
All
for
right,
my
well,
kids, my grandchildren.
you know
Need
what?
it all.
We got a couple of these. We'll just sort of give them all to you.
Okay, sounds
Voila.
good to me.
Oh, you know what? And if you spend $500 with us today, we will throw in a free set of bungee cords.
Ooh, what are those for?
Well, these go perfect with the do-it-yourself bungee jumping pack.
All right, I like that idea.
We even got these buy one, get one free. So if you want, all you need to do is spend $500.
It's making noise.
The batteries, I'm sure we can find some of those, but
No.
you've got your hands kind of full right now. So what do you say?
I'll take it.
All
Take
right,
it all.
very good.
I want the stuff.
Excellent.
Let me see. Hold on 1 minute. I give you that. Right here. You ready? Okay. You take plastic?
Oh, but of course. We'll just run this through right here. Okay, you are all set. Here you go. I'll just kind of...
Thank you. Thank you. Be on my
Okay.
way. I gotta get going.
Remember,
Okay.
anytime that your stuff breaks, you can always come back and buy it all over again. Ah, another lifelong customer in the bag.
Please pray with me.
Lord, allow us to be changed by your word forever. Amen. Sorry, I forgot where I put the microphone. I would like to say that a place like Stuff Mart doesn't really exist, although I really can't, because in varying degrees, it does exist in our world. Stuff, everything you could possibly want and never really need. Hopefully you're not shopping there as willy-nilly as Madame Berry there. Certainly hope you're not buying do-it-yourself bungee jumping kits, because that would just be a little crazy. But I don't want to razz on stuff too much. But the truth is, sometimes the next big thing can mess with our behavior and any goals that we would possibly have of financial freedom. We've been talking about the last couple of weeks. How is it exactly that, stuff is just sits here? It's kind of amoral all by itself. So how can that or behavior mess with such goals that we would have of being able to be free financially? Well, our scripture for today will kind of illustrate that a little bit. And it's different than what I have in the bulletin happens to come out of Proverbs 25. It says, "A man without self-control is like a city broken into and left without walls." Of all the fruit of the Spirit that Paul lays out, this is probably one of the toughest to see manifested in our lives. That fruit of self-control. And without it, we're like a city broken into and left without walls. Mainly because the repercussions, if you will, of a lack of self-control can become very glaring in our lives. In today's context, can certainly mess with us in the form of bills that come in. And one after the other, and after the other, and after the other. And before you know it, you're finally drowning in them. Just like Our Lady in the background. This leads to anything but financial freedom. Certainly a sense of financial bondages where our entire lives, for some people, are about paying off this pile of paper of bills. But today we will get extremely practical as we deal with this whole topic of financial freedom, because something like the bondage of debt can permeate into all of the areas of our lives. Well, like I said, all your energy can be focused on keeping creditors off your back. All the money that you have poured into that, which certainly takes a certain amount of sanity with it. How do I jump from a topic like self-control to a topic like debt? Well, what are extremely large debts, or large debts in general, if not in some degree, a lack of self-control? Now, I ask you to give me a little bit of leeway in this definition, because I'm not going to get into, the debts of, if a mortgage is good or something like that. I'm thinking particularly in the sense of credit cards in this context, because we have the control over how much bondage we allow ourselves to get into with that. And that's one of those things that can create all kinds of financial bondage. Because there is a connection between, or a correlation between, debt and bondage, as the writer of Proverbs will say. Right out there, the rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is the slave to the lender. The writer of Proverbs didn't exactly pull a lot of punches, and that's probably not a bad thing. Of course, the world will tell us this is all okay, if not actually good, maybe even normal. As we think about that, our Western world will tell us being up to your eyeballs in debt, if not over your head in debt, is the new normal for our world today. So what exactly does normal look like? Well, again, I'm going to focus, just to try and keep things a little bit simple, on what credit cards do to people. But here's our new normal. Almost 16,000 in credit card debt across, I believe this is across the United States. And if we, by what is normal, pay our minimum payment every year or every month, 32 and a third years to pay it off. So some people may think, and the total that we end up paying, starting off with just $15,900, after 32 years, we get to pay a grand total of $39,173 average. Imagine paying for a used car for 32 years. Imagine how many cars you would go through as one breaks down and has to get replaced and has to get replaced and has to get replaced. 5 cars later, you're still paying off the first car. But just for the sake of illustration, what would it look like if we took our same old $15,900, had it in cash, and actually invested it? To those that are paying it off in credit cards, it means losing almost $40,000. How about if we invested it? I'll say 12%. You may think I'm crazy for saying that, but I'll get around to that. Being in debt, $40,000, or having almost $620,000 in the bank with that same starting amount. Like I say, you may think I'm absolutely nuts for saying, we can invest it at 12%. I'm sure there's some way of being able to do it. Unfortunately, I don't know the secret to that. But the fact is, people will agree to pay 15, 20, 25, 30% on a credit card without even batting an eyelash. So all of a sudden, 12% doesn't seem like such a big number. But why does this happen? Because we need it now. We just gotta have it now. The world will tell us something's wrong with us, or something will be wrong with us if we don't have it now. Even if the owner of Stuff Mart doesn't know what it does, we still have to have it. Because some person who got paid to be on a 30-second blurb on TV said, you need it now. One person gave an interesting definition of, or an interesting explanation of how this all transpires in a person's life. Where he says when people come out of school, call them 20, 21, 22, they finally get out on their own for the first time. And all they maybe experience is what life is like with their parents. For me, I will be very honest, we were very blessed. Never knew what my dad made, but I always knew there was going to be food on the table, and eventually that my college would be taken care of and all that sort of stuff. And we come out of school, get that first apartment or whatever, and instantly want to continue living like we did at our parents' place and that standard of living. Not realizing it probably took our parents 25 years to be able to get to that point of having nice things, a house, a car that functions. There's a line in a movie that Robert De Niro gives that kind of really spells it out. He's got all this really neat stuff. He's got a club that he owns and everything like that. And somebody's asking him how he ended up being so successful. And Robert De Niro looks at his friend and he says, think about everything that you want in life, materially speaking. Then plan on spending the next 25 years putting it together, piece by piece by piece. Robert De Niro's probably 60 when he plays this character, and you can see he's been doing this for the last 25 years or so. And that was said in 2001. What's the 2012 version of the same idea? Think about everything you want, materially speaking, in your life. Whip out Plastic Man and get it by day's end. Now, if you're thinking, I'm 60, I'm 70, or up, this doesn't affect me, this doesn't play into my life, well, consider this. Somebody who tries doing this at 20, 21, 22, when they're 55, 60, maybe 70, they could still be dealing with all of this. As that bondage, as we saw, take 30 some odd years to be able to get rid of. And that's if they don't add on top of it. But here's the truth that it's probably been a little hard to swallow over the last 5 years since our economy took the nosedive that it did, greatest price since the Great Depression. Something like this isn't the bank's fault. Something like this isn't a credit card company's fault, as much as I may dislike them myself. Or even, yes, I'll even say it, not a politician's fault. But it's actions or attitudes that either buy into this way of living, way of dealing with money, or decides to stay free of it. You want a little tip on how to stay free of it? Stay out of bondage? There's a little 2-step program that I heard of that really hits it hard. And I'm not always a fan of like your 2 or 3 or 5-step programs, but this one does it pretty well. It's called Don't Spend Money You Don't Have. 2 steps. You want to know how it works? Step 1, don't spend money you don't have. You want to know what step 2 is? It's pretty simple. Repeat step 1, don't spend money you don't have. What a revolutionary thought! But it requires Solomon's words to make it sink in about self-control and patience. But as one person put it, being able to say no now so we can say yes for the rest of our lives. You know, they did a study not too long ago about what it is that makes wealthy people wealthy. And this was done within the last 10 years. I can't remember the exact date that they did this. But they went around to all the places where you would expect people have a whole lot of money, where there's BMWs all over the place and 10-bedroom houses, 13-bedroom mansions, stuff like that. Yes, I've actually seen some of those. But the strange thing was, and the people who lived there obviously made a whole lot of money. They'd be doctors, physicians, lawyers, the people you would expect would have money. But the strange thing they found out was that a high salary really had nothing to do with whether or not a person was wealthy. Because they sort of redefined what wealthy looks like, and it basically came down to this. A $300,000 a year salary doesn't mean much when it costs $280,000 a year to maintain your lifestyle. Who were the truly wealthy people? And it took them a while to start looking in these areas to find the truly wealthy, those who had $1 million, $5 million, $10 million in the bank. People who lived in modest houses, certainly not the 13-bathroom mansions. People who often drove used cars. People who could easily drop $500 on a pair of shoes without even batting an eyelash. And yet they'd rarely spend over 40. See, if I remember the math right, these were people who could basically live their lifestyle on 7 or 8% of what they make. And these are people who make like 70, 75,000. It's actually all described in, the study is actually out of this book, The Millionaire Next Door. The Palmyra Library has it, or they will have it after I finish reading it. This happens to be their copy. But if anybody actually wants, I have a little 6-page summary of what they say in this book that I can email you a printout for you or whatever. But what if we've spent a little time living in the buy now, pay later funhouse? How exactly do we get ourselves out of it so that stuff like what's in this book could actually make a difference? And I use this book because just out of its practical wisdom. How do we get out? Well, there's a systematic way that I'll describe to you. And I'll say this as kind of if focusing on having financial freedom is all that you're concerning yourself with. If you're buying a house or something like that, I'm sure the strategy changes, and that's for financial experts to be able to tell you about. But if we were to systematically break through this, I'll show you how I've learned it. And remember, as I described this, that it's not the credit card companies or the banks or the politicians that put 15.9 in debt into your average person, but actions and attitudes about how they spend and how they go about being instantly gratified by what Plastic Man can do for them. So the solution that I'll show you takes our actions and our attitudes into account a little bit. So for your average person, they have about 3.5 credit cards apiece. I know that can sound like an insane number. Some people probably can have 12, 15, 30. So I just kind of made up a character, Jack, and his balance sheet, if you will. Would you use this as an illustration? And the first step would be coming up with just a little bit of extra cash. Money, the amount doesn't matter, just something. $20, $50 a month. Coming either from adding to our income a little bit or shaving something off the expenses. Some people could probably just half how much they spend at Tim Hortons or Starbucks and come up with a fortune, be able to pay this off in a heartbeat. Maybe it'll take you a little bit longer, but like I said, the amount doesn't matter, but something. And we start off with that lowest of the balances. So we're paying the Discover card here, the $500 balance, $30 right off as the minimum. And we take that extra $20 that we find a month and start pouring it at the Discover. So we're paying $50 a month at the Discover. The 30 for the original and our 20 extra bucks. And eventually, that one is wiped out. Paid off. Done. They can never touch us again. So now we have 20 extra bucks from finding it. Plus the $30 we're not spending on Discover Card anymore. So that's what, $70? $70 plus the $40 we're paying at Sears. So we're paying $110 a month at Sears. Bam, 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 knocking down that $700. All of a sudden, it's gone. Sears can never touch us again. Now we've got $20 that we found in our budget. $30 we're not spending on Discover. $40 we're not spending on Sears, so that's 90 extra bucks that we freed up. And now Sears and Discover can never touch us again, which is kind of nice too. So the $60 we're paying to MasterCard plus our $90 extra money, knock that down, knock it down, knock it down. After a couple of months, guess what? MasterCard can never touch us again. So now we've got $20 extra cash. 30 we're not spending on Discover, 40 we're not spending on Sears, 60 we're not spending on MasterCard. That's a lot more money than we started. Sorry, I can't do math that well. That we just found in our budget now. We're given the 75 minimum plus whatever that number was. 150. Thank you. I knew it would come from the treasurer's area. And all of a sudden we're spending 75 plus the 150, all focusing on this and knocking it out, knocking it out, knocking it out. Before you know it, Visa can't touch us either. We're free from the bondage from Discover, from Sears, from MasterCard, from Visa. And if the list were to go on, we just kind of keep systematically pounding away at it. If you need me to show you this in slow motion, see me after church, I'll explain it again. But how does this play off of our actions and the attitudes that we have? Like I said before, or as Madame Berry illustrated for us, instant gratification gets us in a lot of trouble. Wanting it now, now, now. The world telling us you need it now, now, now. What does this do? Gives us a quick win. Gives us a victory now. Nothing is more contagious about earning victory than getting one. You hear some people will say, pay off the highest one first, or pay off your highest interest rate first. And it's great and it can work. But for years you may be paying at Visa and MasterCard and Sears and Discover as you gradually knock them down. And you don't feel like you have anything to show for it. You can't say, yes, paid in full, done. Discover can never touch me again. In my book, that's a win. And I've done this for a couple of months as we kind of systematically look at our finances. And to basically call a bank and say, here's the last payment. Basically, you can never touch me again. Kick them to the curb. If you're borrowing from your family, I don't recommend kicking them to the curb too hard. It feels good. And it builds on that action and attitude that can get us into trouble. All of a sudden, instant gratification is a good thing. And it may take a little while, it may be a victory every couple of months, but they happen. And they keep you going, so you can stick with it. But even bigger than knocking this stuff out, not being in bondage, as the writer of Proverbs says, to debtors or to lenders. When we finally play it out, it lets us be wealthy. Wealthy enough to do what God has called us to do. Some people who I know are generous in spirit, but the pocketbooks are limited in their extra money. Desire in their hearts to be able to help out the poor, help out the needy. But when you look at the balance on the checkbook, it's like, I want to, but there's not the money to do it. Breaking financial bondage allows us to help the poor. Some desire to be able to work in missions or help out missionaries in whatever way that looks like. Some people even wanting to go out on the mission field itself. But the fact that mission trips may cost money, or being able to step aside from work for a month or two may cost us money. We can't afford it. Breaking financial bondage lets us hit the mission field without worry. I know I'm approaching this, especially today, in a very practical way, and how the world works and stuff like that, but if we think about it in this bigger picture way, that all this kind of stuff, and trying to achieve financial freedom allows us to be able to be wealthy enough to do what God has called us to do. It's when we aren't slaves to lenders. We can live abundantly as servants of God.